My boss once spent 10 full minutes tearing apart a report, calling it unreadable, embarrassing, and the worst submission yet. There was just one problem. Every single word in that report was hers, and when I proved it, she went completely silent. If you've ever had a boss who nitpicked your work just to feel powerful, if you've ever sat there biting your tongue while someone disrespected you for no reason, then this story is going to hit different. Hit like, subscribe, and let me tell you about the most satisfying corporate revenge I've ever witnessed. This happened about 19 years ago. I had just landed a job at State Street Bank in Boston. On paper, it sounded incredible. High visibility team, complex financial operations, direct exposure to senior leadership. It was sold to me like I just stepped into a fast-track career accelerator. Instead, it was a mushroom farm, kept in the dark, fed crap, expected to grow. And at the center of it all was Paula. Paula wasn't loud or aggressive in an obvious way. That would have been easier. No, she was clinical, cold, the kind of person who could destroy your confidence with a raised eyebrow and a sigh. She had this habit. You'd bring her your work, carefully prepared, triple-checked, numbers solid, and she wouldn't even look at the actual content first. She'd zoom in on margins, font size, bullet alignment, word choice in a cover letter. Why would you phrase it like that? This sentence structure is awkward. Did you even think before formatting this? Week after week. It didn't matter if the financial data was correct, and it always was. What mattered was control, and she made sure we all felt small. The team? Terrified of her. People from other departments? They hated interacting with us because Paula had created this culture of pressure and scrutiny that spilled outward. One of my main responsibilities was a weekly update on oil warrants out of Nigeria. For anyone who doesn't know, a warrant is basically the right to purchase a commodity at a fixed price, in this case, oil. The kicker, there was an option floating around to buy at $30 per barrel when market prices had spiked to $90. If exercised, the financial liability could have been massive. So yeah, the numbers mattered, the exposure mattered. But Paula? She cared about whether my executive summary flowed better with a different adjective every single week. I'd walk into her office with the report, heart steady, numbers clean, and I'd walk out feeling like I'd just failed a test I didn't know I was taking. At some point, the frustration stopped being sharp. It became heavy, like carrying around a backpack full of bricks every day. And then one afternoon, everything changed. I was digging through old network files looking for historical data to compare trends. Deep in some archived folders, I stumbled across something interesting. An old project. Same type of reporting, same structure. Only difference? It was from before Paula had a team. She had written it herself. I opened one file, then another, and slowly I started noticing something. The formatting wasn't perfect. The phrasing was clunky in places, the structure almost identical to what she constantly criticized in my reports. I leaned back in my chair, and for the first time in months, I smiled. The plan formed quietly. No drama, no confrontation, just precision. The following week, I rebuilt my report from scratch, but this time, I copied her structure exactly. Her headers, her formatting style, her spacing quirks, even the language in the cover letter, word for word. The only things I changed were the updated numbers and relevant data. It was flawless replication. When I finished, I printed it out. My hands weren't shaking, my heart wasn't racing, I felt calm. I walked into her office and placed it on her desk. She adjusted her glasses and started reading. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Then, her face tightened. What happened to the old format? Her tone already sharp. I kept my voice neutral. Well, you didn't seem happy with the previous versions, so I thought I'd try something different. She flipped a page, her jaw set. This is worse, probably the worst one you've submitted. There it was, predictable, comfortable even. She went on for several minutes, tearing it apart. Unprofessional, unreadable, sloppy structure. I didn't interrupt, I just watched her. Waited. Finally, she leaned back and said, "What were you thinking when you made these changes?" That was my cue. I slid a second stack of papers across her desk. "These," I said evenly, "are your reports from a few years ago. Same project type. I found them on the network and used your formatting and cover letter language verbatim. I figured if I followed your template exactly, it would align with your expectations." Silence. Not awkward silence, heavy silence. She looked down at the old reports, then back at mine, then back again. Her face drained of color. For the first time since I'd worked there, Paula had nothing to say. I let it breathe. Then calmly, "So if this format is bad, should I go back to my previous one?" She blinked, just once, signed the report, "Send it as is." I tilted my head slightly. "Just to confirm, less than a minute ago you said it was unreadable." Her pen paused midair. "It's fine, we don't have time to redo it." Translation? She knew, and she wasn't about to admit she'd been shredding her own work. I walked out of that office lighter than I had in months. Sent the report exactly as she approved it, but I didn't stop there. Before that meeting, I had already copied every single one of her old project folders, saved locally, backed up, organized. If she wanted to play the formatting game, we were going to play by her rules. Sure enough, a week later, those network folders disappeared, deleted, moved, gone. I had expected that. The next time she criticized a minor formatting detail, I quietly referenced another one of her previous templates. And again, and again. Each time, her confidence cracked a little more. Eventually, she asked outright, "Have you been using my old work?" I looked at her calmly. I created SOPs based on historical best practices. It seemed logical to standardize reporting using proven templates. Technically true, impossible to argue with. The cat and mouse game continued for the rest of my time there. But something had shifted. She was more cautious, less aggressive. She knew I had receipts, and that knowledge alone changed the power dynamic. I wasn't scared anymore, because once you realize your bully stands on the same shaky ground as you, they stop looking so tall. A few months later, I found a new job. Better culture, better leadership. I quit without drama, but I left knowing something important. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't lashed out, I hadn't sabotaged anything. I simply held up a mirror, and she couldn't stand her own reflection. That moment in her office when she realized she had just called her own work the worst submission ever, that was the payoff. Not because she was humiliated, but because the illusion shattered. For months, she made me feel incompetent, small, like I was constantly one mistake away from disaster. And in less than 60 seconds, the truth flipped. Her criticism wasn't about quality, it was about control. And once that was exposed, she lost it. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction, it's about clarity. It's about calmly showing someone that the standard they're using to crush you doesn't even hold up under their own weight. And honestly, that's more satisfying than yelling ever could be. If this story made you smile even a little, hit that like button, drop a comment. Have you ever exposed a hypocritical boss? And if you love stories where karma hits at just the right moment, subscribe, because trust me, there are plenty more where that came from.